Welcome back, everyone, to week 4 of Victory Road's World Cup of VGC. My name is Steph Fullweiler, and I am joined by a friend I have not gotten the pleasure to cast with until today. Very excited. Yuki Zenovich, welcome. It's so good to be here with you today.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me. Victory Road's such an incredible platform to, not only bring players together, but also casters. You're over there in the different part of the world in Canada. I'm over here in Japan. And here we are on the same screen, agreeing the same audience. I think it's truly magical. So, thank you to Pokemon for this opportunity. Thank you to, Victory Road. And thank you to all of our sponsors as well. GG Tour, MetaFee, uh,
And Elgato.
and Leonardo, sorry about that. Yes.
Yeah. No,
And we have 2 more exciting matches to cast, so really excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So going into our first our match for the third match, we are going to have Team Ecuador versus Team Italy. We've got Gabriel Berrios versus Leonardo Bonanomi. And then game 4, we'll get to talk about that a little bit later, but we will have Victor Medina versus Mengru. So Yuki, what do you think going into these matches about the players? We've got Gabriel versus Leonardo to start.
Yeah, I think we're entering a really exciting part of the competition because we started off with Germany and Japan, which we've had the pleasure to cast in the first 3 weeks of the qualifier rounds. But now we start to have Thailand, Italy, Spain, the teams who had the seeds going in, getting the bye through the qualification round due to their really great performance in the previous year's World Cup. And we just watched Thailand, and now we're on to Italy and Spain, the powerhouses, the ones who made it all the way through to the very end of last year's World Cup, facing off. And Ecuador is not going to make it easy for Italy, but I'm really excited to see what this matchup is going to be about.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with that, let's take a look at the week 4 standings right now. Italy with a very strong lead with 3 wins right now. And Ecuador not taking, they do have one, looks like they do have one match they did win one match but lost the best of 2. So Ecuador not taking a set just yet, but they're not out just yet. And we can take a look at some of these Pokemon as well. That's always really fun to see. A lot of pretty standard Pokemon we see in the meta right here.
Yeah, absolutely. We see, just off the bottom from Luca versus Paul, we see the almost exact mirror in the Kyogre and Zacian teams. And up on the top, we see a little bit more diversity. Both teams using Yveltal, but we see Groudon and Zacian over on Italy's side, and a Kyogre Calyrex, a very, very unconventional yet very hyper offense team coming out from Raul. So, really curious to see if we're going to be seeing a similar mirror match to what Luke and Paul had, or if we see a little bit more different kinds of strategies in the other 2 matches for our match today.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, focusing in on Gabriel and Leonardo as players, I'm just really excited to get to see how their play styles and, just how we were talking about, with us casters being from all across the world. I think my favorite part about World Cup is we get to see all of these different regional play styles. And so we can see Gabriel did win in 2022 the NA Internationals top 64. What a really cool accomplishment. And with Leonardo being the global exhibition champion of 2021, as well as being a World Cup finalist and Players Cup 4 finalist. So a lot of really cool achievements under these two's belt.
I can't agree with you more. I mean, the results speak for themselves over here for Leonardo, but I definitely want to spotlight Gabriel here a little bit. I think, what you can't really see from the accomplishments, for example, might be the kind of players you're up against. And the thing I want to highlight is that for this year so far, in the World Cup, Gabriel has had to play against Shohei Kimura, Hibiki, and Eduardo, all really powerhouse, strong players. People involved in the community have heard of them one way or another. And he's held up a 1-2 record against these really, really tough players. And now he's up against Leonardo. So, even if he doesn't have, the same number of accomplishments as Leonardo might have, I think he'll be able to put up more than a fight, just being well-versed, playing against the top players in the world. So really curious to see, what kind of, like you said, the playstyle difference between Leonardo and Gabriel, which is especially relevant in a mirror match like this as we see the teams being revealed. So both teams having Zacian, Kyogre, Incineroar, Thundurus, and Rillaboom, while on Gabriel's side, we have a Grimmsnarl support, and Leonardo, we have the Whimsicott. So any thoughts on how you think this could influence the matchup?
Yeah, so immediately I do look at that Thunderous because something I've found very interesting looking back at how the meta has just evolved, these last few months is, we used to see Thunderous, running, with, Prankster and, a bit more supportive. And then we saw it kind of go a little bit more aggressive and we're seeing those defiant Thunderouses. And so, Thunderous can be run in so many different ways. And it's always interesting to see, is it going to be that slower, bulkier set or is it going to be that aggressive, hyper offensive powerhouse?
Yeah, I think just the having the same Pokemon but being able to have such diversity in how you use it is such an interesting part of VGC. And I think maybe more than likely we'll see the Defiant variants that are
Hmm.
known to use the Max Airstreams to their advantage.
Right.
No other Pokemon on either team really known to use Max Airstream or Max Strike that effectively. So they'll probably be relying on the Thunderous, who can really wait off attacks by Zacian, being able to take the Behemoth Blades at half the damage, thanks to its lightning typing. But let's just go ahead and get started into the game. We see a Kyogre and Whimsicott lead over from Leonardo's side.
Yeah, and then, okay, we are going to see on Gabriel's side, we are going to see the Thunderous and the Grimmsnarl. So we do get to see Kyogre's Drizzle set that weather early on right here. And yeah, there's so many different options you have going into this game one. There's a lot of information that you have to have, that Whimsicott can run so many different sets, right? Is you never know what that Whimsicott is exactly running. You have the options with that Grimmsnarl to set up your screens. And so there's a lot of different options.
Yeah, so many options, like you said. I think Kyogre and Thundurus, a little bit more straightforward kind of Pokemon. Assuming that the Thundurus is Defiant, has access to Max Airstream, some Thunder type attack, while Kyogre does its thing with Water Spout. But the Whimsicott and the Grimmsnarl, they are a totally different story. They are support Pokemon, and let me tell you how big their move pool is. I think the big part of this game is going to be figuring out how much information to give up, how much information to get about these two support Pokemon while still being able to win the game. So we can just kick it off right with this Thunderous maxing.
Yeah, right away, going to use that Dynamax big play right here. And we are going to see who's going to get targeted. But Leonardo is going to match that offensive play with an offensive play of his own, is also going to go ahead and Dynamax. We know it's not going to be that Whimsicott, so it is going to be that Kyogre who is going to be here. Definitely going to want to survive any sort of electric type attack, or if there's going to be a max, the Airstream coming in here for that speed control going into that Whimsicott. There's a lot of different options right here. Whimsicott is going to go for its own Tailwind right here to change those speeds. And then Grimmsnarl is going to go for that light screen. Definitely going to help against Kyogre's special attacks coming in and doing a ton of damage. Kyogre is going to now move first, going in with that Max Geyser into that Thunderous. And how much damage is it going to do? Not enough to take it out, unfortunately.
Yeah, we see the Thunderous come and fire back with the Max Lightning, dealing good amount of damage to Kyogre, but also not enough to pick it up. And conclude the turn for us, but not too much information being shared other than maybe the item on the two offensive Pokemon. So Kyogre is showing the HP being lost from the Life Orb recoil, whereas Thunderous being able to take such a huge attack, possibly indicating that it has access to the Assault Vest item or just a very, very bulky set. Whimsicott and Grimmsnarl, on the other hand, the Pokemon we said have a little bit more diversity in them, using a little bit more standard moves in the Tailwind, which we expect from Whimsicott, and also Light Screen from Grimmsnarl. One thing to watch out for is where the Grimmsnarl has the Light Clay item so that the screens last longer.
Yeah, and we are going to see that Whimsicott swap out right here into a Zacian. Very interesting play to know, the Whimsicott isn't really the big threat onto the field. We are to see Kyogre go for that Max Guard. Thunder Wave coming out. Another way to get speed control using that Thunder Wave. Max Lightning going to go into that Kyogre, but with a fantastic Max Guard, that Kyogre is going to stay on the field. Really great swap in with that Whimsicott to Zacian right there, predicting that really Kyogre is the threat and wanting to get rid of that right away, which leaves you an opportunity to kind of reposition.
Absolutely. Really obvious that Kyogre was the biggest threat on the field, so Max guarding that, anticipating Gabriel to double into that, and also appreciating that the Whimsicott might want to stay in the back so that it can step a Tailwind a second time, and then also bring more offensive pressure onto the field with the Zacian. So excellent play from Leonardo, and we see a more defensive turn from Gabriel this time.
Yeah, this time Gabriel going for that max guard and the reflect coming up to now help against those physical attacks that we're going to expect from that Zacian, like a Behemoth Blade, but thanks to that max guard, Behemoth Blade is not going to hit. Max Geyser is going to come out and hit onto that Grimmsnarl. We're going to see how much damage it does. It is strong, especially in that rain. Going to knock out that Grimmsnarl off of the field. Kyogre going to be taking a little bit of damage from its life orb as well. And so now there's a decision right here. Is the Kyogre or the Zacian going to come out to play?
Yeah, and then we see sort of a reverse of the previous turn where, Gabriel takes a bit more of a defensive turn instead to reposition better, let the Grimmsnarl get KO'd. I guess the only difference is, though, is that Leonardo didn't take the bait, doubling into the Thunderous. There was definitely a risk that the Grimmsnarl would, go for the Thunder Wave into the Kyogre and then attack into it with the Thunderous as well, but, very safely spreading out the attacks between the two targets and able to pick up the Grimmsnarl this turn. So now we still have, I believe, maybe 2 more turns left of Tailwind over on Leonardo's side. We'll be seeing if Gabriel can, stall it out effectively.
Yeah, and both Dynamaxes did run out there, which will have an impact in terms of how much damage is going to be done. So we are going to see Zacian go for a Protect right here, really trying to keep Zacian safe. The other Zacian going to be going for a Behemoth Blade, but Gabriel's Zacian not going to be affected. And there's that powerful Water Spout, and we're going to see how much damage this does to this Thunderous. It is, of course, going to knock it out with that little remaining HP left. So Thunderous does go down here now that it's no longer big.
Yeah, and I think a big play I want to shout out from Leonardo's side is, I guess since he has the Life Orb variant, possibly doesn't have access to inaccurate moves like Origin Pulse, but I think it's really respectable that he went for the Water Spout that turn, and I think most players might want to go for a more higher damaging attack, especially when the Kyogre's HP is that low, but noticing that the combination between Zacian and Kyogre might be able to pick up the Zacian, so really biased towards making sure that he can get the necessary damage onto the Thunderous with 100% accuracy to take it down.
Yeah, absolutely. And so Gabriel is in a bit of a tough spot right here, but Kyogre and Zacian are very strong Pokemon, so I don't want to count them out just yet, especially with that opposing Kyogre being at lower HP and, having a full health Kyogre to be able to Water Spout. We're going to see Zacian go for the Behemoth Blade, but with a Protect, not going to be able to take it out off of the field. We are going to see Kyogre not be able to hit that Zacian, but we are going to see how much damage it can do onto this Kyogre, and it is enough to get that knockout.
Yeah, I think a lot of information being railed this turn as well, especially since we see the Life Orb reflow happening as well. So Gabriel's Kyogre also Life Orb variant, but also more importantly, potentially, is that it's faster than Leonardo's Kyogre. So whoever wins, regardless of who wins this game, going to be important information for both players to incorporate into their game plans in the following Game 2 and Game 3.
Absolutely. So we are going to find out who Leonardo does have in the back right here, and it's going to be an interesting match, and like you said, kind of figure it out. It is that Rillaboom, which is a very great matchup for Leonardo right here. Very nice against that Kyogre, and so Grassy Surge is going to, of course, give that priority to its grass moves. So with that being said, this is going to be really tough for Gabriel to get out of, but at this point you can really start to think of your what Game 2 moves you're gonna have, or if there is a way you can kind of reposition and pivot. How are you feeling, Yuki, in terms of getting out of this one?
Yeah, I think it would be quite tough. Kyogre not usually having enough the abilities and the defense to stand the Grassy Glide coming out from a Rillaboom. So not being able to switch it out going to be pretty tough here. So I think the number one priority for Gabriel might be able to get information. So we've gotten the speed difference between the Kyogre on Gabriel's side and Leonardo's side. I think the additional information that he might want is the difference in speeds for Zacian, another really important factor in this mirror match, really affecting who needs to get the speed control more. So thanks to both Pokemon having full HP, not able to sleuth out the speed difference thanks to the grassy terrain. So I think Gabriel has a choice of wanting to maybe hide that information by forfeiting, or by just attacking and figuring out which Behemoth Blade lands first. I think it's really important to forfeit sometimes when you feel the chances are low enough and you might want to conserve information.
Yeah, and we do get to see a little bit of a sneak peek here, but now that Kyogre is no longer in its Dynamax form, and if you're running Thunder for that boosted attack power with that Lightning move, now there's no more rain on the field, and so that does make Thunder 70% accurate, which is just something else to kind of consider. We are going to see Rillaboom go in for that Grassy Glide, do a ton of damage, but Kyogre is still bulky, going to hang on for another turn. We're going to see Gabriel's Behemoth Blade go into the opposing Zacian and do over half damage, but Zacian does still hang on. And then we're going to see a Sacred Sword come out to try and finish that Kyogre, and it does. Kyogre is off the field. So Zacian is from that grassy terrain, going to get a little bit of HP back. And yeah, this is looking really nice for Leonardo.
Yeah, so thanks to the Reflect being set from Gabriel, paying dividends in the form of requiring both the Rillaboom and the Zacian to attack it, to take it down. So Leonardo gained the advantage early on with the Tailwind, whereas Gabriel having the Reflect to keep him in through the end game. But not sure if it's going to be enough. We see the Zacian attack first over the Rillaboom, so nice for him to have the faster Zacian, but I'm not sure if it will be enough for him to be able to 3v1 Leonardo's team.
Right, and then we are going to see that Zacian handle that Behemoth Blade, no problem. Rillaboom revealing high horsepower. It's not going to be enough to take out that Zacian, so, that is still more useful information, is how much damage did that high horsepower do from that Rillaboom? How was this Rillaboom trained? So still hanging on a little bit longer right here, but there's that light screen wearing off as well, so it's a little Zacian versus the world right here. But yeah, definitely good to see not only, the move reveals, but how much damage are those moves doing.
Yeah, and not only how much of the damage the moves are doing, but the fact that Rillaboom even has access to high horsepower is huge for Gabriel. Rillaboom, a Pokemon that usually kind of stops in its tracks in front of the Zacian, really relying on the grassy terrain for its grass-type attacks, but with the high horsepower access, even has the option to go for Max Quakes, so that's really good for Gabriel to be able to think about moving forward, and also, with the bulk, seeing that it does less than half.
Yeah, and we are just going to see protect and protect. Not giving up just yet. Grassy Glide is going to go into that Zacian, but Gabriel not wanting to give up just yet and get some of that HP back. I always appreciate playing to your out till the very end, because especially in this game where there are elements of RNG and you have things like your grassy terrain to kind of get that little bit of HP up, just got to play it out till the very end.
Yeah, absolutely. If, let's say, the Leonardo goes for the Grassy Glide again and gets maybe a lower damage than usual, then the Behemoth Blade could KO Leonardo's Zacian, and it might be able to have a fighting chance at least against the grass types in Rillaboom and Whimsicott. So definitely agreed. Worth playing out to the end if you can, but I think this high horsepower connecting means game one will go to Leonardo.
Yeah, and congratulations to Leonardo, and there is game one. So fantastic plays by both players. We got to learn a ton of information right there, and it was really great to see that Rillaboom in the back was very key to make sure that could be wrapped up no problem, because with Whimsicott in the back, Whimsicott is something that Zacian could take out without a problem, and so having that Rillaboom was very pivotal there. Yuki, what did you think of that match?
Oh, I completely agree with you, and I think another thing to point out was the difference in support Pokemon kind of changed the course of the game. So I talked about it briefly earlier, but the Whimsicott really providing the advantage early on with the speed control, letting the Kyogre attack before the Thundurus, which usually is not that favorable against, but thanks to being able to move faster, able to KO it before the Thundurus can KO it back. But on the other hand, the Grimmsnarl's able to set up the screens, and we see that thanks to it having the Light Clay item, after seeing how long the screens lasted, the Grimmsnarl was able to provide support even after being off the field for a lot longer than the Whimsicott. So I think the problem with that match, maybe for Gabriel's side, was that the Grimmsnarl support wasn't good enough in the early game, so that even if its effect lasted throughout the end game, the advantage coming from the Tailwind earlier on, letting both its Solar Zacian and the Kyogre on Leonardo's side move first. So really curious to see how Gabriel will be able to adapt and be able to take more advantage of a Grimmsnarl in the early game as well as the end game.
Yeah, I think, and that's something I can always attest to on like a personal anecdote is knowing when are you being too passive, at the start of a game versus when you need to kind of really pivot and just make strong plays. And so I'm really excited to get into this second match. And yeah, especially when you have a mirror match, those support Pokemon play such an important role. And so we are going to see Leonardo send out that Kyogre and that Whimsicott once again. Whimsicott is always a great lead partner to have. You saw what work that Tailwind did. And once again, we are going to see the Incineroar and the Thundurus.
Yeah, pretty interesting lead over from Gabriel's, and we saw Leonardo lead with the Kyogre in the first game, and Gabriel not having access to Pokemon like Gastrodon that can take the Max Geyser as well. It looks like this Incineroar could very easily get knocked out in one hit, so really interested to see what kind of game plan he has in mind with this decision he made. Perhaps he's going to retreat into a Rillaboom to bait the Max Geyser, or maybe it has a Focus Sash. So we might not find out this turn though, because we see the Kyogre go for more passive Protect.
Yeah, we are going to see Incineroar go for that fake out to prevent any prankster shenanigans, and the Eerie Impulse is going to not hit that Kyogre with Protect. But we do see that Eerie Impulse coming out from that Thundurus. So unlike last turn where we did see the Dynamax right away, we are seeing a bit of a slower paced game and changing tides a little bit right here. And so, yeah, the Protective, very, very nice play to kind of just gauge. And there's a lot of different options here in terms of pivoting. And Incineroar definitely doesn't like being in front of a Kyogre.
Right, and we see the Thunder switch out for not wanting to take a potential Tailwind and a Water Spout. So I think Leonardo's in a great position here, and we might just see our first Kid KO of the game stuff.
Oh, very exciting. Here it is, the Kyogre going for that Water Spout, doing a ton of damage, but Incineroar hanging on with 1 HP. Is that a Focus Sash? It is a true Focus Sash right there on Incineroar. That is not something I think we see every day. Usually we see a berry of some sort on Incineroar, but that's really fun to see. Okay, and there is a parting shot. Incineroar is going to pivot back, and we are going to see this Thundurus come back out next to Kyogre on the other side of the field.
Yeah, thanks to that Focus Sash, an item that really respects opposing Kyogre teams for Gabriel, able to hang on and reduce the damage output of Kyogre and switch back into Thundurus rated Dynamax, despite being maybe slower because of the Tailwind over on Leonardo's side, but definitely in a way better position with the Thundurus, with the bulk that we saw earlier, and the parting shot debuffing the Kyogre, probably able to take Leonardo's attacks in the next turn a lot better. But a little bit worried about what might happen in the following turns when Zacian might come in, or maybe Leonardo's own Thundurus will come in. So we'll see if he's able to get enough advantage in this turn to make up for the remaining turns of Tailwind.
Yeah, this Tailwind is definitely not something that you can ignore, and we are going to see Leonardo swap out into that Zacian, likely predicting a Dynamax to come out here, or just a ton of damage on that Kyogre. So yeah, really interesting and nice switch right here. We are going to see the Dynamax officially come out from Gabriel's end to add a lot of pressure. That with that Kyogre that was previously there, it was faster, and you have to kind of survive those Tailwind turns. So here is the Genie Dynamaxed once again, and we are going to see who this Thundurus is planning on targeting. It seems very likely that it's going to go for that Kyogre spot, because that is where all of the pressure is. We are going to see the Kyogre go for a Protect on Gabriel's side as well. And then the Whimsicott setting up some light screen to help against those special attack moves that are coming in.
Yeah, and I think we see your prediction come out just right. The Max Lightning going into the Zacian, formerly the Kyogre. So great play from Leonardo. Despite being in Tailwind, taking the more defensive approach and preserving the Kyogre for later, either as a Dynamax sweeper or as just something to clean up after a potential Thundurus in the back, Dynamaxing instead. I think Gabriel will really have to read Leonardo the next couple of turns to stay in the game. Despite the Dynamax going through there was no max airstream that happened this turn, so even if another turn happens of him going for a max airstream, won't be able to outspeed many Pokemon Leonardo's end thanks to the Tailwind. So recognizing that, bring in the Incineroar that has a much more favorable matchup against the Zacian.
Yeah, absolutely. Now able to have that fake out pressure back onto the field, getting that Intimidate out to weaken that Zacian right there. And Zacian is going to go for a Behemoth Blade. We're going to see who's going to get targeted. Does this Incineroar get to live another day? It unfortunately does not. So it was a great way to kind of preserve the Pokemon that were in the back. And Incineroar with only 1 HP wasn't going to be able to do much anyway. So Incineroar taking the hit for the team, and Whimsicott going for a Moonblast. We're seeing that for the first time revealed right here. And then a Max Airstream is going to reveal I believe it's the Koba Berry on the Whimsicott right there, and going to take a nice chunk of damage, but going to hang on thanks to that Koba Berry.
Yeah, we didn't see a Max Airstream go in the first game, so this is actually the first reveal of the Koba Berry, so good information for Gabriel to have. And now he has, a Thunderous backed by Max Airstream. I believe there's probably one more turn left of Tailwind, so if he's able to take out that Whimsicott before that, then he might be in a pretty commanding position in terms of speed control for the rest of the game. Another thing I want to point out is the light screen that happened on Whimsicott the turn before. A pretty rare move to be seeing on a Whimsicott, traditionally known to have moves that are a little bit more offensive, whether it's a fake tears, a helping hand, switcheroo, something that puts the opponent in a way more uncomfortable position. But the light screen being a supporting move for especially special attacks coming out from Gabriel, and really peculiar, and makes me wonder what kind of move it doesn't have that Whimsicott normally have. So good information for Gabriel to keep fishing for if there's a game 3.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And, this is the last turn of Tailwind. Got to make the most of it. Zacian is going to go for a Protect. Whimsicott going for Charm, and there's that move revealed. A Charm going into that Zacian, but is not going to play out, and Zacian is going to go Behemoth Blade. And we're going to see how much damage this Behemoth Blade does onto the Genie, onto this Thunderous. A nice chunk, but Thunderous is still able to hang on and get its own Max Airstream off on that Whimsicott. You got to get that Whimsicott off of the field so that it can't Tailwind again that next turn. So with that, Tailwind is going to officially end, and the speeds are going to change. Gabriel also getting the speed boost, of course, from that Max Airstream as well, now having that +2.
Yep, so we see that we have 2 Pokemon on Gabriel's end with 2 speed boosts, and the Tailwind just expired from Leonardo's side, and no real option to get more speed boosts outside of maybe a Thunderous himself in the back. But, unlike the Whimsicott, not something that you can just do at the beginning of the turn, has to survive the attacks coming out from Zacian and the Thunderous. But in this case, we see the Rillaboom come out from Leonardo's end, which is not a very favorable Pokemon to have in this situation. You much rather see a Kyogre. So it looks like Gabriel's in a way better position here, despite the Thunderous being out of its max. I think Leonardo's Zacian definitely in range of the Behemoth Blade coming out from Gabriel's Zacian, especially with protecting that previous turn and not being hit by the Charm, which was a very, very clutch move from Gabriel.
Absolutely. Really, really just fantastic positioning and use of that speed control. Very nicely stalling out that Tailwind and then knocking out that Whimsicott just at the perfect time before it was able to set up another Tailwind is really, really strong for Gabriel. So really changing the tides and taking that information from game 1 to help. Zacian is going to swap out, and we are going to see that Kyogre come out, add a bunch more pressure, a little bit more of a favorable spot for Leonardo right here, and going to set the rain as well, which is going to make those water spouts do a ton more damage. We're going to see the fake out come out here onto that Zacian. Not going to let Zacian get a hit out this turn. And Thunderous going for a fly.
Yeah, I think that was a really smart play from Leonardo's side. I think when you're, maybe in a less favorable position, when your Pokemon are slower than your opponents, and they just had Dynamax, you might feel like a rush to want to Dynamax yourself, but really cleverly noticing that Thunderous won't be able to do that much damage to it outside of its max, thanks to the Fly move requiring 2 turns to go. So going for the Fake Out into Zacian, which had a lot more potential to do damage that turn, and we just saw Thunderous go for the Fly and target into the Rillaboom, I believe. So now it's a little bit more predictable what Gabriel will be going for this turn. So I think Leonardo would be able to take advantage of this and either switch out the Rillaboom or go for potential Dynamax to weaken the damage of the Fly. And it looks like he might be going for the latter.
Yep, Dynamax time. You know, after holding out and stalling out the previous Dynamax, it's time to see Dynamax Kyogre come out, utilize that raid, and do a bunch of damage. So Leonardo opting to kind of go aggressive, you know, put on this pressure, and we are going to see if this Zacian is going to end up taking the hit, or with Thundurus being faster and knowing that he's faster, going to be doing some damage to that Rillaboom and now coming back onto the field so we can see who's going to get targeted. Zacian on Gabriel's side is going to come out and target that Dynamax Kyogre, so it's going to do a lot of damage, but it's going to still bring it to just about half. So Kyogre is so bulky. We're now going to see that Max Geyser come out from Kyogre and find out who's being targeted. It is that Zacian. Zacian not going to be able to take that huge amount of damage, and so Kyogre is definitely showing that it's come here to play and taking that damage from that Life Orb with that water, that Max Geyser in the raid. And there's that knockout from the Rillaboom, able to finish the job on that Thundurus.
Yeah, and a big reveal of the safety goggles. Some interesting part about knockoff, being able to reveal the item even if the move itself knocks out the Pokemon. So that's really good information for Leonardo. Should there be a game 3? But yeah, really impressive by Leonardo, waiting to Dynamax second after Gabriel goes, and being able to basically reverse the situation one turn after facing down two really strong Pokemon that have the speed advantage over him, just using the bulk of Kyogre and Rillaboom, both able to take really strong attacks coming out from Gabriel's side and firing off and returning and getting the double knockout.
Yeah, and this is going to be really interesting to see. I mean, we do know that this Kyogre has Ice-type coverage, but with Rillaboom having Grassy Glide, going to be able to knock out that Kyogre, and Leonardo is going to take Game 2 of the set. GG's to both players. Honestly, that game was going very back and forth. Gabriel had a really strong position there, and then Leonardo was just able to kind of turn the tides, utilizing that Dynamax towards the end, just added so much pressure.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think game 1, it felt a little bit one-sided. Like, we saw the Whimsicott get off the tailwind turn 1, Kyogre doing its thing with Max Geyser, and yeah, like we said, the Grimmsnarl just not able to provide the right amount of support before it was too late for Gabriel. But in game 2, we saw him get the speed advantage, despite Leonardo calling the attack of the Max Lightning into the Kyogre, switching it to Zacian. So he was able to still get a lot of pressure up, getting 2 Max Airstreams in the 2 consecutive turns, and even taking out the Whimsicott. So there would be no more, speed advantage left over for Leonardo's side. But Leonardo just really cleverly using, speed control in the first game, and then using the bulk of his Pokemon, the bulky, Rillaboom and the bulky Kyogre, to just really reverse the situation in that one turn. And bring it back for the 2-0. So really well adjustment from both players, and Leonardo for coming out on top.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that brings Italy now to 4 wins for the week. So if Italy gets one more, that will completely win it up for week 4 with Italy. But really fantastic match from both players. Really, you can tell just how meticulous each of these players are when they're playing, and especially a mirror match and having to really navigate the specific challenges of your own team with just a couple of different options there. So that was so much fun. We'll be back with one more match very soon. So grab a snack, sit tight, and we will be back very soon.